most gay people are a lot better caring for kids than normal people are. I mean, they're cleaner people, they're nicer people, they don't bother anybody, and I don't see anything wrong with a gay person raising any kids.
Are you guys awake? Are you awake? Good morning. Good. Well, I guess you're awake. Good morning, sweetie.
When we got Brendan and Chase, Chase was 2 days old and Brandon was 1.5 years. And it was like these two little bundles of joy were dropped in our laps, and it was like, go.
Well, we had gotten licensed the day before
Right.
for foster care, and that afternoon was our first call saying we had these two brothers, would you take them? And my first thought was, well, is it long-term or short-term? And they said, oh no, it looks like it's short-term. So we thought, well, this would be a good way, to start off.
At this point, I feel fine. The fun is yet to begin.
Push. Harder than that. Harder.
Come on, I see the hair. Come on, push.
7, 8, 9, 10.
Well, in selecting the donor, we decided we would go with a sperm bank rather than a friend, and went about finding out what our options were. We obtained a catalog. It was very much like going through the Sears catalog, like shopping. It was really a lot of
Is
fun.
that too skinny? Too skinny is better than short and fat.
And we went through and kind of determined what we would want in terms of characteristics and physical attributes. Dark hair, straight hair preferably, blue, maybe green eyes. And the first part of the process was really, the only things that were outlined was the height, the weight, the hair color, the eye color, the major in college, the number of years in college. That was the first bit of information that we got.
And really the guy that was like our first, guy that we put like a star and an arrow by that we really liked. When we read his form, we were like, it was just great.
My name is Les, and my partner Marlon and I have been together over 10 years now, and last year we decided to move forward with having a child. It's a really strong desire that we both have, and since we made that decision last summer, the wheels have been in motion, and we're starting to deal with doctors and attorneys and the parties involved.
For one of the most loved boys in the world, from his friends, Vic, Bob, Laura, and Marlene. Wow.
We got certified as foster parents, and a week after we were certified, they called and said, we have your baby.
We're bringing him over, and I'm like, oh my God, we're not ready. We can't take a kid yet. We need to wait a month. We don't have a room. We don't have a crib. We don't have diapers. I was like so fighting against it.
We had a 2-day-old baby, a 1.5-year-old who are being thrown into a home they, have never been in, and we had no idea what to do. And that was the first reality of my calling and saying, you need to leave work now, you cancel your clients, and I canceled mine, and it was like we were there and spent the next few days, next few months with no sleep at all. We were up every 2 hours feeding. We didn't breastfeed, we made a choice on that.
For me, surrogacy is important because of the genealogy tie. I've been into genealogy since I was in high school, and I never imagined myself having a child. I just figured I'd pass along the family stories to my nieces and nephews. But having met Marlon and building a life with him and wanting to take it to that next stage and build a family, I'm just so excited that I can finally realize that dream of having my own family and carrying on the genealogy that way.
I think it really is a sign of the times as how we're evolving as a community. In the 70s we were like sort of expressing ourselves sexually. In the 80s we started to kind of couple up more, and I think the 90s we're starting to address the issues of family.
Well, I even remember when I came out to my family, I was probably 19 or 20, and the first thing when I said I'm gay is my mom said, but you want to have children. You've always loved kids and you work with kids, you know, how, and I said, I know, and I still will have children. And she said, well, how do you think you're going to do that? And I remember then even thinking, I don't know, but I just know I will.
I'm 6 foot 2 inches tall and weigh 160 pounds. I am medium build.
We thought, wow, this is really an interesting guy, and not everyone has an audio tape, but he did have one available, so I went ahead and ordered that and listened to that. And he was extremely articulate.
It's amazing. His answers were great, very thoughtful. He wrote fiction in his spare time when he wasn't in law school, and he just sounded great.
We just had to go with it.
The next day is when we really started to notice his condition. And he, you know, his head was completely flat. He couldn't roll over at 5 months. He couldn't even roll over at 10 months. He started convulsing. I think he did that night, actually, and we just freaked out. I mean, nobody told us he had convulsions at all.
By all indications, the doctors said they think it looks like he was born cocaine addicted because of the type of seizures he had and the frequency. They were every 3 to 4 hours. And the most upsetting thing about his condition when we got him was that he had been abused by adults and was terrified of them, so he wouldn't let you touch him.
It really took a lot of work the first 2 months we had him, and Diane pretty much just left work for 2 months. All she did was work with stimulating his physical development. You know, we got every toy we could think of, you know, mobiles, you know, books, fuzzy things, you know, and working his body and just observing him.
Okay, keep it like this, and when you do it, you got to just do it real hard, step back a little bit, okay?
I just remember Lauren coming home one day. He said he started crying on the freeway with the thought of losing them, that there was a chance that they would no longer be our children, that they were foster children, and the fact that the whole situation could change. And I remember telling him that I'd had a similar situation happen where all of a sudden this wave of, we may not have them for the rest of our lives. You know, they may not be a part of our lives. And that's when we knew that we would, you know, fight for them, just for everything we were worth and anything we could do.
When I first was appointed to represent Tony, it became apparent to me that the social worker on the case was starting to, or acting as if he was prejudiced against the foster mothers of this little boy because of their lifestyle, which is a lesbian couple. And he was attempting to pull the child from them and reunite him with a family member who had a long criminal background.
He got a court order that we were no longer allowed to monitor the visits that he had with his mother and grandmother. We were terrified to leave him. We left him with the mother and grandmother, and when we picked him up 4 hours later, he'd not been given any liquids. He had 103 temperature. He was burning up. He was severely dehydrated. He was almost delirious. We rushed him to the emergency hospital, and they wouldn't release him until 3 a.m.
And then the social worker accused us of fabricating the child abuse. And at that point, Diane and I just sat down. We wrote a letter to the head of social services. We then got an apology letter back, and we never heard from that social worker again.
What are you watering? Are you making a river?
What I remember about the adoption being finalized is no longer were these people always coming in our lives. Some of them that we, you know, even if they were nice, there were always someone new coming through the door, making a decision based on you, based on us and the children, you know, how were we, you know, and they could make a decision at any time that could change things. And for the first time, I can remember as we had to go through and say what's required at the adoption and everything, you know, it was hard to say because it was the first time I realized that they were going to be ours. And even a few days later, I remember Tina and I sitting in the living room, and it was like, our babies are finally ours. No one can take them from us. And to spend 3 years worried that if anybody thought because we were gay or had an issue or that they should have a mom and they only have 2 dads, which I think is pretty wonderful, but that anybody could make a choice to take them. And that was the moment that we knew they were ours.